Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and today we're going to be checking out a fan with too much time, Star Wars vs. Warhammer 40K. This is going to be the short, They Come From a World Called War. I don't know why I went for the funny voice there. I did, and I enjoyed, so I'm going to keep it in there. Because why not? More importantly, the shorts have always been like little just figments of narrative that don't quite fit into the mainline battles. But honestly, I'm getting the opinion that they're almost like little interludes put into a story. So you see what's going on outside, and you have a lot more impact in them than I really expected. There are things that have been, let's go with the last episode, which is really funny up until I was like, oh, by the way, we're kind of highlighting Grievous is coming into the fight, and it's going to be fun. I've been told to look forward to it when that comes up, because it's apparently, I think the term someone used was chef kiss. I'm not going to ask questions because I want to get to it and just be surprised. I have high expectations, though. So we're going to see what's up with this one. I'm assuming it's, I don't know, Krieg or something. I have absolutely no idea what planet that's a reference to. It could be Cadia. Does Cadia mean war? I actually don't know what that means. I didn't think it had a meaning. Whatever. So we're going to jump in, see what's happening, and find out, because I just want to see what's going on, man. You guys know the deal. There's a link below to the original video. Hit it up. Are we done? If you like this, leave a like, subscribe, and let me know if I missed anything, because yeah. Let's get started. Right, dropping into the original animation picture. Or, I guess that's called Live 2D, isn't it? Also, I've been told that these are from something Fan is making himself that he has or has not yet released. If anyone knows, I'm actually kind of curious. I know from seeing some of his current posts, he's doing a comic book on his own and some original writing. I don't know if this is from those, but especially if this one shot is anything, I would love to know more. So if anyone knows, please let me know. I'm actually really curious. That stuff's cool, man. Sorry, I just like the idea that there's like a lich on one side and the wizard on the other. It's neat, but like just the freaking buildings on the freaking water. It's like, ah! Fantasy geek here, yeah. The hell? A cut content special? Oh, this was actually in the main storyline. Oh, so this might be something I haven't reached yet. Hopefully the position it's in isn't a problem. Because I've been told some of the previous ones happened after events that I wasn't aware of yet. That looks like Cadia. Or it could just be generic Marines. Honestly, they make everyone look like Cadia.
The Major's column marched forward, grim, determined, and mostly silent, even as the blue bullet-like shells of the enemy's artillery fell among them. He had more than enough men to storm the park where the enemy had set up their...
Okay, this is going to be a dumb question, but Star Wars uses shells? I'm thinking we're on the 40K side here. Because, I mean, of course I know that the 40K side, they use shells, they use energy, they use whatever they can get their hands on, but I thought everything was kind of energy-based when it came to Star Wars. Or maybe it's just because they're saying it's shells from their perspective, because that's what they would think artillery would look like, and because they're saying it's blue, it's just energy shaped into a shell pattern. I'm going to go with that, because otherwise, that's a lot different technology than I thought they would use. I'm just kind of curious about that.
Their artillery firing positions, which was good, damn good, because his tanks were the first things to vanish. Every devastator his men had planned to use for cover. Every Lehman Russ tank that was to be their fire support and the very tip of the spear. Even the chimeras were going up in flames so fast, men were choosing to hoof it over waiting for their turn to burn.
Other than the ambush, I wasn't expecting this bit of a turn.
The fire of the enemy was disgustingly accurate, with the only breaks in their attacks coming from those vanishing moments when the civilian buildings obstructed their firing arcs. The Major had tens of thousands of men, and he had been supported by a quarter as many tanks. But at some point in their long march toward the foe, they had become a target priority, one which only swelled, drawing more and more of the enemy's guns in the process.
Oh, so
he had wanted to call for air support, either to hasten their approach or otherwise harass the firing positions. But apparently the troop carriers of the Republic doubled as assault ships, and they were not alone besides.
Okay, I just want to point this out. I don't usually go into audio details. I don't usually go into it as much as some people who have more of an ear. But I can hear what they're doing in the background, just like little blaster bullets, and every now and again just like a little clicking, and a little bit of background music. It's going to sound geeky, but I like it because it really brings in the immersion, showing this is what the battlefield sounds like, and it gives a weight to the words more than just what Fan is saying himself. And I like that because it's adding an extra element to the story that the narrative itself wouldn't get across. Or it can, but it adds to it in a way that you normally just have to completely imagine. It's not even loud, it's not obtrusive. I just really like that he's doing it. A nice little extra.
By dedicated attack craft that could escape most of their deployed atmospheric fighters by veering into space.
Yeah,
Suffice
that would
to
be an
say,
advantage.
the Navy had their own hands full. Even a tactical orbital bombardment was out of the question for the time being.
Why?
With their larger ships engaged with their own form of trouble. He had
It would be a
wanted
random
to
shot
wait
and more
for the
likely to hit
shock
them at that
drops and
point.
tactical squads of the Tempestus Scions to arrive,
Ooh.
to wreak havoc with the foe's lines, even as they advanced. But the word had come in, and the Scions had their own problems and objectives. They could not guarantee a drop in his battlefield.
Haven't seen them in play
He
yet.
had
I'm kind of looking forward to
requested
that.
artillery firing support, but their basilisk turrets and other defensive emplacements had been badly mauled. Their vehicle depots raided, their remaining artillery capacity being used to hold the enemy's frontal assault on the Basilica. In dire fear and fury, he had demanded some kind of support, even from the sisters, something to help his men cover
would
the
listen?
distance without eating death all the way. But what he received, and was made to be grateful for, was far less than he needed,
A prayer?
and nowhere near what he wanted. Sanctus Command had promised them a vague but potent number of reinforcements, but made no commitment on their arrival.
So they're not getting reinforcements, they're getting vengeance after they're all dead. Yeah. Granted, I mean, it's kind of weird that someone's trying to save their troops. I thought when you got to a certain level in the militarum, you kind of just assume everyone's going to die. I guess maybe this guy's low enough on the chain where that actually matters more.
Besides, they had been ordered to defer to the command of the Sister Palatine, not him.
Oh.
From the sisters themselves, he had received something more
That's a change-up.
substantial, though just barely.
So it's definitely after the
Annoyed,
beginning of
or
the fight.
perhaps
which kind of
impressed
figured.
with his persistence, especially after his beating at the hands of their leader, the Sisters of Battle had bestowed him with 2 warriors of the Sisters Repentia, a penitent and her overseer. While
I'm sorry, they handed out a penitent? Do they mean an engine or just a person who they're calling a penitent? Wait, this came out 2 years ago? Were the penitent engines even out at that point? Yeah, oh wow, because they came out at the beginning of 2020 and yeah, no, they would have been out by then, so Fan would have had access to that. He would have known. Okay, yeah. Sorry, it feels like all of that sister stuff, the penitent engines, are brand new still, even though they've been out for closer to half a decade than not. It really went too fast. Goddamn.
While he was glad to receive anything, neither of them would be able to shield his men or provide any kind of value until the battle was properly met. At least the penitent, large as it was capable
that's
of
an engine.
dodging and moving around the incoming volleys and had survived up till now. But now he had no tanks, almost no armored support at all. His column was messy, disorganized, running in places, marching in others, always under fire. He himself was marching with them, having abandoned his tank 8 minutes before its destruction. Most of the other officers had followed suit. The ones who had not were dead.
Because
He
they made
flinched,
targets.
Heat scalding his skin as several meters away, another shell impacted the road, scattering men and body parts in a red cascade which fell like grim rain over the...
Okay, I know I've already kind of mentioned this, but I really do love this. I love how they're showing that the Star Wars side isn't just getting their ass kicked. Because coming from the previous episode where we were focusing on Star Wars, we were getting them, how to put it, being raffle stomped and not looking like they're going to win. I'm very much talking to the not yet shown battle between a single Space Marine librarian and all the Jedi. It hasn't happened yet as far as I've seen it. By this point, it may or may not have already happened, but I may or may not be watching this out of order. I don't know. But I'm seeing that as like, okay, yeah, no, that's not going to go well. And then seeing it on the ground where the troopers are kind of holding in their own against the clones initially when we had that first burst of battle. they were holding their own, and honestly, the clones had an advantage that I wasn't expecting, but it was pretty cool, but it didn't seem like this. Like, it's almost a hopeless slaughter that they're just walking into as a distraction, and the distraction being so other people just get time to build up and get into position, which admittedly is a completely valid tactic and one that the 40K Imperium does a lot. But I like just seeing the meat grinder aspect of it, that they're walking into attrition warfare here with not so much Krieg-esque depression, but honestly, it's not even depression for them. It's actually just duty at that point. It's details. I like this. I like showing from the grunt side what the other side, what Star Wars looks like. Showing them as an actual force to fight against, as opposed to the people we know who, at the upper echelons, are going to probably have issues. It's cool just seeing how there is actually an imbalance, at least so far.
Marching soldiers around them. The Major's face and clothes were stained red enough that he could be mistaken for a Commissar at a distance. The thought made him search around, and sure enough, she was still there.
Oh.
Commissar Indricta. She was marching through.
Good choice of art, fan.
Through the gore rain, roaring some kind
Commissar
of Imperial
waifu
anthem that
anime
men
style.
around her
I
were
didn't know this
struggling
was
to
a
keep
thing,
in
but I
tune
shouldn't be
with.
surprised.
Their voices drowned out by the whistling and booming of the Republic's artillery.
Uwu.
Though she was technically younger than him, she had all the authority to strip him of his unofficial rank and take command at any moment. In fact, while it shamed him to admit so, even to himself, that had been precisely the reason he had sought her out. But when he had found her, lounging outside the barracks...
Okay, one, describing a Commissar as lounging. Never would have expected that. Two, I'm sorry, did he just say he sought out the Commissar to relieve him? Now, I could be mistaken, but usually, yes, they have the authority to do that. But don't they usually do that with a bolter? I had to have misheard that.
To admit so, even to himself, that had been precisely the reason he had sought official rank. Technically younger than him, she had all the authority to strip him of his unofficial rank and take command at any moment. In fact, while it shamed him to admit so, even to himself...
Yeah, he was looking for a Commissar to relieve him of duty. That's weird. Sorry, just from a strictly interpretative view or interpretive view of 40K, most people who get a rank, they want the power. A lot of 40K is corrupt. He must have been promoted from a very much lower level to want to give it up. Because honestly, I don't think when you get to a certain level, it doesn't really happen. You're either a main character, you're a well-trusted NPC, or you're probably corrupt in 40K. And the fact that he's willing to give it up is kind of shocking. I would not expect that. Also, again, the previous part where I'm pretty sure that the Commissar relieving him would involve a bolter to the head. Many shocking descriptions.
Precisely the reason he had sought her out. But when he had found her, lounging outside the barracks, tall hat pulled over her eyes as if snoozing while the artillery
she actually was sleeping?
Her, she had not taken command. The young Commissar had, instead, propped up the hat enough for the glint of her deep violet eyes to complete the smug, cruel expression on her face, and said, "Yes, I'm empowered to take command anywhere I see fit." She had then drawn her bolt pistol and lazily aimed it forward, her arm as thick as that of any male Commissar. He had, at that time, stood to her left, the only thing before them having been the wreckage of a struck basilisk turret.
And she's lounging?
Even so, the menace of the action had been even more frightening than the outrage of the sister Palatine.
He might not have known.
But only after I execute the commander for incompetence, she said.
Huh. Wow, he definitely was promoted from much lower because he didn't realize that's how that worked. I thought I was just wrong for a second.
Then squeezing the trigger and firing a loud, cracking bolt into the wreckage.
My wife doesn't see this.
Or heresy, she added, firing again. Or cowardice, she finished, firing one last time.
This is going to sound weird, but is that a JoJo pose? No, I'm not even joking about this. It looks like a JoJo pose with the arm pointing down going... I can't be right. No, considering JoJo's... It probably is a JoJo pose.
She had turned her expression
okay,
on
wow,
him
they went with
then,
evil anime face.
an expression of bloodthirst so profound it would have made a hive tyrant envious of her genes. And with the focus of her eyes had come the barrel of her gun, now aimed squarely at his chest.
Is warp-related.
Which one of these?
Or that there was recently a whole bunch of traitor Cadians. Technically, that happened during the fall of Cadia. There was a lot of traitors.
These are you guilty of? Exactly. And that had more or less settled it. He was in charge. The thought left him feeling numb and grim in equal measure as he waded through the rain of his men. And always, with each step he took, he was aware that it could be his last.
Must be Tempest's
that the last sensation he would have would be those of exhausted muscles, of being too hot, of being covered in blood and dressed in responsibility he had never asked for and had not been equipped to take. Such was the madness of the galaxy, the reality the Imperium sought to tame, he thought.
I love how he's accurately describing anyone in this job. There's very few people who are adequately prepared for this. And most of the ones who think they are like, you've heard my opinion, mostly corrupt assholes who think they're fine at it. And then need a commissar.
The notion made him grin. Something he regretted a moment later, spitting blood and growling, gritting his now red teeth. In truth, the fire falling among his forces was more showy than anything else, killing only 5 or 6 men per impact, nothing compared to the numbers he was bringing with him.
Yeah.
And most of the enemy artillery was either focusing on the tanks further back on his line, those tanks in the other 2 columns he had created when he had been forced to choose an approach, or on the main battle happening much farther away. Even so, just one man being pulverized and thrown...
I'm just going to take a second to appreciate this art. Holy shit, man. I love it because you can see the tank trundling forward, the ground destroying it, or being destroyed underneath it. The sheer sense of scale that you have the walkers of the tanks as big, powerful piles of death, and just overshadowing everything in the background of just a night, it looks like. But it's huge and standing almost in the clouds by the comparison just with the size of it all. It's not even going to... Yeah, it's definitely a night, it looks like. It's not even a Titan, it's just a night, but it looks huge. I love the sense of scale, because this is great art. I need to figure out where Fan got this and get it. Also, it looks like a Psyker caught on fire. Yeah. Could be a trooper, but considering staff, I'm assuming Psyker.
Into the air could cause a shower, and this was more than that. Finally, relief. The shadow of one of the largest civilian buildings on their path passed over him and the front of his marching force.
Oh, because they're getting out of the way of the direct fire.
And they halted to recover
they're trying
and
not to
regroup
destroy
their
buildings.
formations.
Minus the
Men wiped gore from their uniforms, shook soot from equipment, screamed into their hands, and became sick, tossing up where they stood.
Wait, what?
Major Lazarus did not drop or rest, fearing that he would not be able to recover if he dropped any of his own fronts. While it was acceptable for his men to show their weakness, at least now, while they could, it was not acceptable for him, now more than ever.
What tank is that?
Instead, he waved his Vox crew forward and took one of their headsets for himself.
Okay, this might be a weird question, but I thought it was just a 40K regiment I didn't recognize, but I don't recognize the mech type or the fighter type. Is this not 40K he's taking it from? Huh. Well, that'd be different. If anyone knows, I'm just kind of curious because I like anything that involves, giant robots and that kind of stuff, so let me know, please.
Column Beta. Column Gamma, do you copy? Over.
Whoa.
He said into it.
This is Column Beta to Column Alpha. We are about to make the final approach over our bridge. Over,
came the first response. This is Column Gamma to Column Alpha. We copy. We are also ready to make our charge on your command. The voice was cut off suddenly.
I guess they got a lucky
Column
hit.
Gamma. Column Gamma, repeat last transmission. Over. He said. No response. Column Beta, do you have visual on Column Gamma? Over. Again, nothing. But he could hear the Vox working. What had happened?
Sniper.
Was he somehow being jammed? Had they been attacked? The more he thought about it, the more it made sense. The park could only be openly approached by 3 bridges. But luckily, just before each approach was a large commercial building, something the artillery was unable or unwilling to fire into,
So far unwilling,
providing
probably.
a place to gather in relative safety before the approach itself. If he were in command of the defense, this would be a prime spot for an ambush. But then why had the others been attacked and his group not?
Did they come with more armor because he split his up? I mean, that would be a very easy way, because he did make it sound like he moved them off, and they look like a horde and not something that apparently snipers would be the most effective against. I mean, sure, they could snipe him, but the sniper won't be able to take out the command as easily as they would the command who are just happening to stand on the top of tanks, because that's the thing they do in 40K, at least in the art.
The others had arrived first, but if his location was also primed for a trap, why hadn't it been sprung? He looked around, and the reason hit him hard. His column was still gathering, regrouping. The enemy was going to hit hard with something massive. But what? Where? He looked around, eyes scanning the buildings, the road, the spires. The spires! There, adhered to the side of the spires, caterpillar-like tanks stood silent, unnoticed in their altitude and angles,
shot from the Clone Wars?
only visible from here, and only when looking back the way they had come. His mind frenzied. What should he do? What could he do without creating a panic?
They could put tanks on buildings. I love it because you can see the lines. I'm assuming this is actually something from Clone Wars, and they actually did this in the show. It could be mistaken, but it looks like the lines are holding them up. Either that or he just took the picture and turned it sideways, but oh my god, I think that's a pretty cool tactic. I'm actually loving this. Oh man.
Heavy weapons teams, set down, arm, he called. Men turned to heed him, and sergeants and other officers repeated his orders, but no one had caught on yet, not any but the most canny, who began looking around. Take cover! Into the megastructure! Prepare for an assault by the enemy!
File into their own
He
buildings
called. Heavy weapons teams, aim there! He yelled, as the men who had just sat down paused in confusion, wondering if they should run for cover or stay on their weapons. They followed his aiming hand in a vague direction and quickly spotted their targets. They began to fire, las cannons, missile launchers, and more, beginning a stuttering first volley as the guardsmen began to dash for the huge structure which had been shielding them from the artillery.
And because they were using it as safety, they didn't look at it.
The tanks adhering to the side of the tall spires
How did they set that up?
Fire, and the doors and windows of the huge building the guard were fleeing towards flew open, revealing massed groups of clone soldiers who had been ready and waiting all
like
along.
He said, yeah.
Blast them! One of them roared, and the clones let loose a rain of scything blue death from their positions.
Damn.
The Major suddenly found himself caught in the crossfire that was surely consuming his other 2 columns even then. His men were faltering, they were floundering, they were dying! He grabbed the Voxcaster's howler mic and activated it, raising it to his lips and nearly deafening himself with the sound. Men, to me, to me! He roared. His guardsmen did as instructed, beginning to gather.
Him now.
Affix bayonets! He ordered.
Of course they had bayonets.
Those who had not already did so now, locking the various wicked blades to the muzzles of their las guns and auto rifles. As one of the Imperator!
Okay, this. I know the Vox. You know what? I actually kind of like the fact that the mic he's using right now, that Fan has, is turned down so it's not overwhelming the audio, which some of the previous videos had issues where the audio just jumped way too high. I also like that it's capping out the whatever's recording it, because it's coming from a Vox grill. Those things are loud, and because a lot of 40K tech is kind of fucked up in their own little ways, I like that it would sound that way. So it's just a cool little audio tech. I'm not sure if that was intentional or not. I don't know if it might be a problem or not, but if Fan ever gets a better microphone that wouldn't make that an issue, I hope he keeps that effect, because it actually kind of fits with what I'm thinking it should sound like. I like this. This is good. So basically what I'm saying is neat. That's why I like that he's not capping on my audio.
The Major screamed, pulling free his chainsword from the scabbard at his side and dropping the mic, charging first, but quickly followed by over 10,000 roaring human warriors. Together, they drove into the rain of blue bolts with desperation and fury born of the will to survive.
This, oh, goddamn. It's the one thing the clones probably are not expecting because, depending on how far into the fight they are, they haven't probably realized that the main source of combat for most people in 40K isn't long range. I mean, for a lot of people it is. But for everyone else, yeah, no, getting it to punch distance is perfectly valid. And if you have a chainsword, man, you're going to use it. Unlike cavalry sabers, which are more ceremonial right now. Just, I love this. I would love to see just like a little snippet of the clones when they're watching this going like, wait, are they running at us? They're running at us. Oh shit, why are they running at us? Because they're bold. Or actually, no. The clone armor might be really good against what the Imperium is throwing down with las rifles, but I don't know how to hold up to frickin' chainswords, man.
Not as a race, not as an empire, but as men, individually and together. For just the next few moments, he was in the lead for a while, but then a shot took him in the left thigh, the center of his chest, and the side of his head. His carapace armor absorbed most of the first two shots, jerking and jostling him with high-speed, high-energy impacts.
Sighted in on the leader,
But he felt a fifth of his face slough off, and horrendous pain blossomed there. His speed faltered, and while he was not trampled, he was overtaken by the men around him, who, in turn, took the next volley of blaster fire, some of which had been destined for him, he was certain.
I wonder what's up with that Commissar.
But Major Lazarus did not cease his charge, did not surrender to the pain eating
his vision and
filling his mind. Instead, he channeled it into a scream of defiance and kept his legs pumping.
Well, that's what a multi-wound character looks like.
Far above cracked the carapace armor on his right shoulder. He drove on and on until suddenly he was there. His men had formed a ring of their dead around the window that was his target. The clones stationed there armed with rotating blaster cannons that spat blue
Those don't turn fast, do they?
Volleys that only grew inescapably tight as he neared. The Major used his free hand to yank his first grenade off his belt, bringing it to the thumb of his sword hand to pull the pin before lobbing it and leaping forward behind the mound of the dead. The clones still fired, and their strafing shots caught his left leg and shin, blowing the carapace armor there away and burning him. But
dear God, this guy's taking more damage than most of the people who already died.
Leaving him intact. The same could not be said for his enemies, as the frags sailed into the wide window they were using to fire from.
Grenades,
the clones scrambled to escape it, but not only were they weighed down by their large guns, but Major Lazarus had not stopped his assault. Snagging and tossing more grenades from the corpses, clearing the window seconds later of anything they could still
His men
fight
are the
back.
enemy. Oh, I don't...
His men found him and pulled him to his feet, others charging ahead and into the window, the same thing happening all around them as the clones either withdrew or were overrun by one method or another. Cursing, spitting, and gratefully taking a shot of something which killed his pain, the Major followed his men into the building, still much more a sergeant than a commander. The place was some kind of market, a center of commerce with stalls and storefronts lining the walls of huge, open chambers of various shapes and designs. Walkways always leading between them, matching the theme of the room. He moved through several, and soon found himself fighting inside a luminous white oval room, large enough to fit two Imperial knights, one on top of the other, its volume honeycombed with intersecting paths and bridges. The walkways in question were of an odd design, in his mind made to look like railless, guardless paths of light. In reality, the paths did...
Oh yeah, because that's actually design choice. Dark Souls-esque architecture. Yeah, that's a... I'm just thinking of all the different scenes in the Old Republic, in Clone Wars, even just early on from what I've seen, and in regular Star Wars. They do that a lot. Things that honestly look like they shouldn't be OSHA compliant. That would even take some guys from the Imperium going, that doesn't look safe. Not often, but they would.
Did have guards, solid barriers that rose about waist high on either side, invisible unless touched by something, revealing smooth white ceramic. He and his men, as well as their foes, used these for cover and found them oddly sturdy, though they became permanently visible in a wide radius wherever they were struck by either blasters, bullets, or last shots. The near-invisible nature of the paths and the layers and layers of bridges above and below where he was fighting led to a chaotic battlefield where Lazarus could only guess whether the shots he would take would actually fly to their target or if they would suddenly be intercepted by yet another previously unseen barrier. The room had been designed to look like a heavenly art gallery, but doing battle in it was like fighting in an emperor-damned funhouse.
Oh, jeez, yeah,
the two men at his side screamed as...
Yeah, no, calling it a fun house. I thought it was just like a weird description, but no, it's so perfect a description. It's kind of almost too on the nose. It's kind of like when you describe a hose as long and full of water. Yes, but also it's perfectly describing it. It's a bunch of what looks almost like glass or the equivalent of glass that may or may not be a force field. So everything's just all over the place. What you see is not what's there. And what would it look like if bolts just randomly stopped midair? Would they be really bright or concussive or what? How strong is this force field and or building material that it can hold up to that? And does it hold up to that? I'm thinking too much, aren't I? I definitely am. Still though, it's such a cool little detail. Tell me someone commissioned a fight picture of this just to show what that would look like, because that would be so freaking cool, man.
As bolts from behind them struck them down, Lazarus leapt forward and tossed his smoke grenade, dropping to his hands and knees and crawling as they blind fired after him, making for a bend in the path, and thereby putting the waist-high barrier between himself and them.
Ooh.
As the smoke cleared, he could see he had been outflanked.
Ooh.
The damned toy soldiers had dropped down from a higher platform and had hit him and the men behind him with an ambush. They spotted him and fired, and he sneered as their shots hit the invisible barrier, and he vanished behind a suddenly revealed wall of pale but blackening ceramic.
Oh, so it is ceramic.
He popped up and started getting his own shots off, but he was just as hindered as they, and he felt like he had been chewed up by an ogren, his body a mess of aches and imprecision.
The fact that your head was hit and you're alive is weird
as
enough.
they shot at him, trying to catch him dead to rights and out in the open. He grit his teeth, slinging the last rifle he had been using and drawing his last pistol and his last grenade.
Why? I mean, I know it's a cool image, drawing your pistol, but is he out of shots? Is it just, because he's going to shoot with one hand and throw with the other? No, because you need two hands to throw. You can't pull a pin out with one hand. I guess maybe if you put your thumb through the hole, you could. Are grenades in 40K designed to be thrown one-handed? Can you even do that in reality? I know I'm overthinking this one, but I'm actually curious, and I'm going to have to look that up later.
A crack grenade. He pulled the pin on the thing and pitched it directly at the advancing troopers. The wounded major then watched the sphere adhere itself to the ceramic with some unseen technology. The gyroscopic shaped charge within spinning to face the surface before detonating. He would have preferred to use a frag for this, as crack grenades were made for armor penetration and did not have a great spread.
See this. This is something I love. What he's doing is probably the absolute best possible choice right now. He's destroying their cover and maybe their footing in the process. I don't know if they're standing on something or above something or if it's floating pathways everywhere. I don't know. I wish I had a picture. It'd be awesome. But he's saying how I wish I had a frag grenade so I could get in there and just do the damage. But I'll have to settle for this frag grenade that'll only do a bunch of very localized damage, which, at least on the tabletop, is represented by very high damage but doesn't spread. It's only one target. And he's throwing it into their cover, so if it doesn't hit them, it'll do damage to what they're on. And I love this, because instead of just saying he's making the most tactically sound choice, the story is telling us, well, I got nothing else, I'm going to use this option that's definitely not the best. But we're about to see that it is very much the best option. Why I'm really geeking out over this is because it's doing and saying two different things. It's showing us, or at least about to show us, that this is the ideal and optimal decision, but we're seeing that he's very much new to his rank and doesn't quite realize that he did something really damn good by making a decision that is optimal without realizing it's optimal. And the story is acting as if it's not. That's just writing at two different levels. It's what you see versus what the character sees and how it's being approved. I love that. I love this style of writing where it does that. Also because the story hasn't jumped around to multiple perspectives, and I just kind of appreciate that. Oh, dude.
Still, it did its job, blowing open a segment of the walkway barrier,
which is
killing
way
one
more
of the
useful
clones and
because they don't have
exposing
cover
the
anymore.
others. He popped up again, firing with his pistol, the toy soldier so close as to keep its limited power effective. He had downed one with the grenade, and now two with his pistol, before the three that remained were on him, charging the rest of the distance. Ah, feck! The Major groaned, shooting and stumbling as he took even more shots, his chest plate cracking and hissing, his left arm cooking, and his right leg losing its strength as a small hail of bolts chased him to the ground. He dropped his pistol and reached for the sword at his hip, tugging at it, but suddenly finding himself looking up at the three clones above him, one of them raising the butt of his rifle to begin bashing.
Oh,
the Major raised his arm to brace, but without warning, something dropped behind the clones, a shape in black, hitting the ground with a heavy thud.
Oh?
The clones spun,
Silence?
rifles out, and Lazarus craned his neck to see what had happened. It was a body, an Imperial soldier in black, having fallen
Assassin?
from above. Thump, crack, and then another one fell not too far from them, the soldier groaning, leg clearly broken. The clones turned back to the Major, intent on finishing him.
Who's
before
throwing
more
his men?
corpses fell on them, but the offending clone never got as far as striking.
Oh?
His bucket-like helmet, complete with the head inside, came flying right off his shoulders. The other clones reacted quickly, but not quickly enough. The long barrels of their cumbersome DC-15A blaster rifles making them too unwieldy
Is it the
to
Commissar or
use
someone
in
else?
such close quarters. It was the first corpse, no corpse at all, the soldier having risen silently and attacked
Wait, is it
viciously.
Death Corps?
Lazarus' eyes bulged as he watched the guardsman, dressed in a black overcoat, his face hidden in a large, encompassing gas filtration mask, lunge.
Oh my god, they actually had Kriegers with them! Which makes sense considering they're basically vat-grown in mass to overproduced, even to the point where they decided to give more men than the administratum asked for in a tithe. So, bit my tongue, ow. Yeah, just that. And the Krieger, of course, being suicidal charged, decided that the best way to handle this is to jump down. It's so incredibly stupid. But technically it would be the fastest way. Why find the stairs where you could just jump? Oh, God.
He lashed out at the second clone, swiping with his weapon, an axe of all things, and cutting one of the trooper's arms off at the elbow, following that up with a hard chop to the clone's skull, ending him. That was when Lazarus actually saw what weapon the soldier was using. No axe at all, but a shovel? The guardsman yanked his shovel.
Heavy shovel noises intensifies. Oh my god, it went full meme. It went full meme. That's a shovel for entrenchment. I just decided to sharpen it.
Shovel out of the dead clone's skull and helmet, but would have been gunned down by the third clone had he not been gunned down first by the other guardsman,
who also jumped down,
sitting up, ignoring his obviously broken leg as he riddled the white-clad clone warrior with bullets from his autogun at close range. Two more soldiers dropped with hard thumps, though the enemy was gone, and the rest came down on more sensible rappels as Lazarus was helped to his feet. He looked up and whistled at the height the others were coming from, looking at the soldier who had helped him up, and wondering how he himself was still standing after a fall like that. The Major was barely shocked
Kriegers
to
are
find
insane.
Commissar and Dricta leading these insane, faceless men.
Wait, what was her name?
Commissar and Dricta leading these insane, faceless men.
Let's say it.
Coming down on her
I'm guessing that's
rappel,
the one who
her blood-streaked
threatened him earlier.
grin more alive than ever before.
Yeah, the crazy
This
one.
was hell, and she was thoroughly enjoying.
You know what? Suddenly this makes a lot more sense. She was pretty insane, even by Commissar standards. She seemed very laid back, But considering if she's the Krieg Commissar, that's a special kind of crazy, even for 40K. I mean, in canon, the Krieg Commissars are literally there to enforce mandatory survival ethic. Because if left to their own devices, they will gladly all die. Oh my god.
Enjoying it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Major
She's insane.
Lazarus, I'm glad I found you, she said, disconnecting from her robe and walking over to him. I am elated to report the enemy is in full retreat. The fighting now is mostly in those pockets that we managed to corner and cut off. The structure is ours. Yes, ours to be our
for
grave.
This piece here.
Forgive me for saying so, but this is no victory, Commissar.
Yeah, it is.
Our back is broken. Our armor is gone, exposed and destroyed.
And you won.
And what is left of us is packed into this building. As soon as the enemy finish their withdrawal, I doubt they will leave it standing. They got what they wanted from this ambush. Our approach is blunted, he said, but not halted, Indricta added. He thought for a moment and then nodded.
Because the reinforcements
How many of
coming
these
up.
men do you have? He asked. She grinned more widely. Thousands, she said. And are they all as fearless as this one? He asked, clapping the soldier who had saved him on the shoulder. The man stood resolute as a statue and just as silent. She nodded. From where do they hail?
Krieg.
He asked, still looking at the man, noticing how much shorter he was than he himself.
Really?
He couldn't help but wonder how old the guardsman was under that mask.
Considering how they're made, the actual answer might be 5 or younger for all I know. Because they don't live that long.
They come from a world called Krieg, she said. The word was like a clap of lightning, leaving Lazarus stunned. But slowly, he returned her grin and squeezed the guardsman's shoulder more tightly. Then perhaps our assault is not as blunted as I thought. Gather close. I have a plan.
Oh, he actually picked up on that. Nice. Oh. Continued in what are we looking at here? Oh. Okay. We got a Krieg animation. I don't even know where this is from. Probably a game or maybe something. Soldiers of the Storm. And that was honestly kind of insane. It was a very simple story. Not a lot happened. They literally walked to a point, got ambushed, and then broke into the building and took down the enemies. That's all that happened. But we got so much good details about the characters and getting Indricta in there, because she definitely seems like a very colorful character. My initial thought with just the sheer bloodlust was, well, probably someone Khorne influenced, because anyone who would relax in a battle, actually now I think about it, probably would never be Khorne, because they would be the ones trying to fight, and the idea of relaxing in a battle would be anathema to it. Never mind. But then like the purple eyes are like, ooh, I know that's Cadia. Weird that the Cadian is the Commissar for a bunch of Kriegers, but details, I don't care. But yeah, she's also the kind of crazy, and they got that across. They got the sheer bloodlust and the fact that she's enjoying it well across, which probably one of the reasons she can actually deal with Krieg, because she's probably as insane as they are. And the idea that Krieg has a reputation of, oh, Krieg's here. They're going to fuck shit up in front of them. That's a thing, and I love that reaction, where at the very end, the Major's like, oh, never mind, I see why you're smiling. I agree with this method. And I just like every second about it. I like seeing his opinion of what to do, what not to do, wishing he had a frag grenade, having a crack grenade instead. I like that he took it down. I thought, honestly, that would be more destructive to the pillar, and instead of just taking out the one. I honestly thought that would change. But I like how all of this is happening, how we get his opinions, how we got what was going on, and that he wasn't the hard bitchin' warrior, but he's someone who seems to be raising to that level. And I like seeing those kind of stories. So this is the equivalent for me of a whole bunch of candy right now. This is literary candy for me, and I'm enjoying every second of it. Also, I do need to go Google to see if you can actually just prime and throw a grenade one-handed. It's gonna bug me. Should it? No. But it's gonna be in my head now, and I just need to go do that. Just gonna do that. So if you haven't already, there's a link below to the original video. Hit it up. And if you like this, don't forget to subscribe, because more people watch, more people subscribe, I might do more. And by might, I mean, I'm going to do more. This is freaking fun, man. Oh, yeah. I might put off every now and again for other stuff that comes up that I just want to get to right away. But there's no way I'm skipping on this, because this is just... I enjoy this. Fan is a really good writer. His voice acting's really good. He's putting in a lot of audio aspects that were not in the earlier stuff, but are coming in now, and I just think he has good choices, and it's fun to listen to this. I was at first told to doing this, to even look at this, I had no idea what I was looking at, because I don't usually listen to a lot of stories outside of SCP. And that's a very different medium. So this is just, like I said, this is a bunch of candy for me. It's literary candy. And I'm loving every second of it. I'd say it's akin to the candy store, but that metaphor is really, at this point, a little too sugary, so I'm going to pass on it. But yeah, again, link below, original video, hit it up. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.